Okay. Wow, this semester's gone by really quickly. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'll tell you what we'll do. Today we're going to do a quick review of where we've been, and then we're going to take a look at the few remaining class periods we have left. I'll tell you what's going to happen then, and then we'll talk about other steps. So today, what I'm going to cover is not only our next 4 class meetings, but what's expected for your final presentation, your poster presentation, your final report, your team participation survey, your senior survey, and your student evaluations. Wow, there's a lot left to do. And then on Thursday, we're going to get together, and I'm going to cover some details about the oral presentations and your written, shouldn't be written presentations, your written reports. We're going to cover some kind of the hot wash items, some areas that were good, areas not so good, with a view toward how to improve it for your final presentation and your final report. Well, here's where we've come. First 2 weeks of class, we met together, and then we all separated, and we got into progress report mode. That's what I call phase 2 of the class. Phase 2 is now complete. We have finished the progress reports, and now but we still have written reports going on. So we're still in the final stages of the risk analysis and implementation plan report, and there will also be a final report due. Faculty advisor meetings are done, so that's hopefully you all got the benefit of meeting with the faculty advisor. So now we're in this phase right here, the in-class meetings. See if I can get this working, this pen. This is where we are right now. So this is still going on, but this is where we are now, the in-class meetings. The last week, actually the last 2 weeks of class, beginning today, April 20th, and then on Thursday, and then next week, next Tuesday and Thursday, we're all going to be in here or by Zoom. Unfortunately, the capstone event is not going to happen. So we're going to take the functions of the capstone event, and we're going to do those in class next week. I'll talk about that in a minute. However, the final presentation is still alive. Okay, so you still are going to be making your final oral presentation to your client and your instructors, and I'll talk about that as well. So everybody understand where we are, right? Just quickly reviewing what you're supposed to learn in this course. Hopefully you've been able to apply some analytical skills that you've been developing as a student here in our curriculum. Hopefully you've been able to apply some business knowledge and some of those skills from your finance classes, accounting classes, etc. Developing your professional communication skills. I think Dr. Kestel and I agree that your communication skills are getting better, much improved from the beginning of the semester. You've been exposed to some industry problems. Some are some really interesting problems that you've been able to tackle. One that there is not a textbook solution to. You've been able to do your own research and educate yourself about those problems using some of the fundamental knowledge that you've had in your curriculum. And then you've been able to conduct a systems analysis of a significant management problem. Everybody agree that that's what you've been doing this semester? Okay, systems analysis, okay? You've been able to evaluate the financial and economic issues associated with the problem. Some of those problems have been more easily analyzable than others. Is that a word, analyzable? Able to analyze, okay. And you've conducted reporting operations, which is all the written and oral reports. And you've been improving in your professional oral and written presentations. So in terms of the tasks, since the beginning of the semester, your individual writing assignments, you've each had one of these to do. There are 4 total, so everybody on your team had one to do, and the last one is still in progress. So you've got 3 out of 4 of these done. Your oral reports, you've done 4 of those. You've done 4 peer reviews, and you've done 2 faculty advisor meetings. What is still remaining is you still have your final written report to do, your final oral presentation, and also a poster presentation. So this is what the homework schedule looks like. You can see we're kind of down to line number 6 there. The risk and uncertainty in the implementation plan is back in your hands, and you're supposed to turn that back to us by Thursday. The final report, line 7, will be due on May 4th. That's actually your final exam day. So ostensibly you need to get that in. That's kind of like your final exam. We will be very grateful if you don't wait until May 4th to do that. That is a no later than date. So I encourage you, if you want to get this off your plate so you can focus on final exams, hopefully you'll be able to do that. Line 8 is what we're going to focus on today, your poster. It's kind of another aspect of oral communications. And so the draft for your poster is due on Thursday. Now, don't get too excited because it's just one slide. I'll show you that it shouldn't be a big stretch. As a matter of fact, the big challenge for you is going to be what not to put in your poster. You've only got one slide, and you can imagine that you're going to harvest some information and some tables and figures from your other oral presentations and fit them onto this poster. So it's going to be a challenge to figure out what stays in and what goes. But that's due on Thursday, so we'll talk. I'll give you some more details on that. Then we'll turn that around and get it back to you by that following Monday, and then on Tuesday the 27th, you should be ready to present that. Your final presentation, homework number 9, will be your final oral presentation to your client, and you should be scheduling that. We'll be talking about that. And your team participation survey is also due on May 4th. So as you can see, out of the 3,000 total points in this class, there's still 1,100 points still yet to come in. So there's quite a bit. So please don't drop your pack, as we say in the Marines. The hike isn't over yet. Okay, you still have to carry the pack until you get to your destination, and you're not there yet. So the final oral presentation is worth 300 points. Your poster presentation is worth 100 points. Your final written report is 700 points. So that's a lot of points still outstanding. Your team team survey evaluation is really not worth any points, but we deduct 100 points from your score if you do not submit one. And of course, your faculty advisor meeting forms, make sure if you haven't submitted those for credit that you do that as well. So let's talk about the poster. The poster presentation. Now, I apologize that we're not able to have a huge party for you like we had planned on the reading day, April 30th. We usually have that right next door in the big glass building where the engineering students and the ag system students have their posters all printed off, and they're dressed up nicely, and they're in a big circle around the room. Anybody ever been to one of those? All the faculty are there, the clients are there. We invite guests to come in. The dean comes through, and he's able to walk around and talk to students about their project, and you're standing there in front of your poster. Well, we're still going to accomplish the function of you being able to use a poster to communicate your project. Here's how we're going to do it. You're going to prepare a poster in Microsoft PowerPoint. It's just going to be one slide. We have a template that you can use. There are going to be multiple components to your poster, so it's going to be tempting to make it really busy. And unfortunately, most posters end up being really overly busy. So what you have to do is summarize the main points of your project, the main points from your final report in your poster. Now, I realize your final report isn't written yet, but I think by this time you kind of have an idea of what your final report's going to look like. So think about your poster as a bit of a summary or a preview to what your final report's going to look like. So you're going to submit this by Thursday to us on eCampus. We've got that set up right, Young. They can submit that just like homework. Dr. Castell and I will take a look at your posters quickly, and we'll make some comments on how you can make them better, and then we'll get them back to you hopefully by noon on Monday to give you a little time to adjudicate the comments. There's not going to be a lot that you're going to have to do, because if you follow my instructions, you'll pretty much get it right, okay? And then you're going to revise your poster. You'll make whatever changes that we've suggested. And then you, as a team, you need to rehearse a short poster presentation. Now, you could actually do this before you get our revision. But you can see your presentation is going to be really short. And the challenge is going to be, there's 4 of you on a team, 3 to 5 minutes. How do we do that? Well, we'll talk about it, okay? And those presentations are going to occur next week on Tuesday and Thursday, the 27th and 29th. So teams 1 through 5 will be scheduled to go on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, the remaining teams will go. I would like to ask for Team 6 to be prepared to go on Tuesday if time allows. So if we allow 5 minutes for each team to present and then maybe 5 minutes for questions, that's going to be about 10 minutes per team. So if we have 5 teams go on one day, that's 50 minutes. We should be able to get that done in an hour and perhaps have time for one more team. I need to make a little space on Thursday for some other things that I want to accomplish on Thursday the 29th. So I'd like to get at least through Team 5 and perhaps even Team 6 on Tuesday. Okay, and what that's going to look like is you're actually going to present your poster on the screen. You're not actually going to go through the high school science fair process of printing off a big piece of paper and getting some foam board and some double-sided tape and mounting it on there. As fun as that is, we're just not going to put you through that this semester because of the hybrid nature of this class. Some of your poster presentations, you can do them in person here. So that'll be kind of interesting, a hybrid presentation. If all your team members are here, we'll try to move the camera over to the poster or to the screen. I've got screens on either side of me for those of you who are on the Zoom. Let's see if I can, well, we'll figure that out later. So you could do your presentation in person or you could do it by Zoom. But the key is you've got to talk through your project in a relatively expeditious fashion, hitting just the main points. You're not going to be able to talk about all 3 of your potential solutions. Okay, you're not going to be able to talk about the awesome literature review that you all did with the 3 peer review journals. Not going to be able to fit that in, okay? You're really just going to focus on the problem and the solution, maybe the implementation and economic analysis, just the big blue arrows, as we like to say, okay? So on your poster, so that's going to happen right here in this room or by Zoom. So this is where we'll be next week, getting through the poster presentation. So each team will go in sequence. There'll be time for questions, and then the next team will put their poster up. You know, if you're doing it by Zoom, you'll share your screen, and it'll pop up here in the classroom. It'll be on your computer, and your team will present that poster using online methods. Okay, just like kind of like you did in your oral presentations. So when you're putting your poster together, I'm going to show you some posters here in a minute. You've only got one slide, so space is limited. You can't put everything from your oral reports on your poster. The text, when you do put text, it needs to be large enough for people to read a few feet back, okay? So you can't really put it too small, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Again, use bullets. Use the major bullet points that will be a good summary of your final report. You really want to maximize the use of tables and figures. Probably the best posters have very few words on them and a lot more tables and figures. Maybe a 50-50 ratio would be about right, but I would even like to see more tables and figures than text on the posters. Unfortunately, my examples don't really follow that idea, but it needs to be interesting to the general public. Typically, a poster is used in a large setting where people are going to be wandering by, looking at the research or looking at whatever it is you're presenting, and the poster's got to grab their attention. I know you're going to be standing by your poster in one of these sessions, and you're going to be engaging yourself, but it's the poster they're going to be interested. They're going to be looking at the title and some of the graphics. If it's all words and it's hard to read, they're probably going to pass you on by. But if it's interesting and you capture their attention, then they're going to stop and talk to you about your project, which is the objective. That's what you want, okay? That's not what's going to happen in this class, but that's what would happen in our capstone event or other places where a poster might be used for oral communication. So you want to maximize the use of tables and figures to make your poster interesting. Small tables are going to be okay, but large tables are not. This is not a place to put the entire spreadsheet on your poster, but maybe a small table to show just the bottom line of your economic analysis. Okay. Here are some topics from your project that probably should make it onto your poster. An executive summary. That would be like an introduction at the very beginning, just a paragraph to explain the problem and the solution, how long it's going to take to implement, and perhaps the cost or the payback period. A paragraph, maybe just some bullets. The problem description. You want to emphasize the problem that your team solved. A little bit of background. Probably if there's going to be anything omitted, it might be that. The recommended solution is the focus of your poster. Here's the solution we are recommending to solve this problem. And then a very general economic analysis. You're not going to be able to put every table from your initial construction costs to your annual operating costs and your cash flow diagram. You may just want to summarize that into one table. So you may have to create some new artifacts. Don't just grab stuff out of your papers and throw it on the poster. While that may work for some figures and tables, it probably is not going to work for this one. Implementation plan, those of you who made a Gantt chart or network diagram, that would look pretty good on a poster and easy to explain how your solution is implemented. And then some acknowledgments. You might want to acknowledge your client, your faculty advisor. Please don't feel the necessity to acknowledge your instructors. The university pays us every month, so we get our thanks that way. This is a kind of a template of a poster. Immediately I look at that and go, that is really busy. So I didn't build this template, but what it does, it's a starting point for you. And it kind of explains what the introduction is and how to set it up. So this is kind of a poster about how to make a poster. Okay, so if you read it, it'll give you instructions on what you're supposed to do. So what you'll be able to do, just like in Microsoft PowerPoint, every one of these boxes is you can manipulate them. You can either delete them, make them bigger, retype information. You can add a graph or a table or a figure, as well as your own labels. Okay, I'll show you that in a minute. Here is so what you've got here is you can see a figure, you can see a graph, you can see a lot of text there. So what I'm going to show you now is some examples of other posters that we've seen in the past. This is one from a few years ago where Chick-fil-A had a queuing analysis problem. So you can see there's a lot of graphical information. There's a picture of a Chick-fil-A restaurant. There's a pie chart, a bar chart, a short table, and then look at the economic analysis, how it's just kind of summarized in a table down there at the bottom. They crammed their implementation plan into a Gantt chart over there on the right, and they use bullets to talk about the risks and uncertainties. So that kind of gives you an idea of how they use bullets and some visual aids to put into their poster. And it's going to have a bit of a flow. So if I was standing over by the, well, let me do that. Let me see if I can use the camera to, let me preset this. Okay. So you can, let's see if I can move the camera around here. Move the camera to that one. The wrong way. Zoom in. Wrong way. Is it that way? Yes. Okay. So if I was going to be doing a presentation on that poster, one of the first things I'd want to have the pointer, and the poster kind of flows from left to right. Now, this is not mandatory. It's not a bad way to set up your poster. But so if I was giving a poster presentation like you will be in class next week, I'd probably start by summarizing the the executive summary. I wouldn't read the whole thing. You're not going to have time. But you talk about the problem. Here's some initial data. So this is some background information. This is a summary of the recommended solution. Installation costs. Not really sure. That didn't really turn out that well. Maybe it just didn't translate well when I copied it over. Economic impact. So as I'm explaining the problem, I'm kind of reading from left to right and up and down. And so in 3 to 5 minutes, I would probably explain for this problem. Chick-fil-A approached us with wanting us to help solve their queuing problem, and I would explain what the queuing problem is. I would talk about some data. We went and collected some data. They provided us annual sales of $3,200 through their drive-through. There are 322 drive-through transactions per day, and I might talk about their data. What we recommended, and I'd spend probably about a minute talking about the recommended solution, 1 out of my 3 minutes just talking about that. But first I have to introduce the problem. And so now I'm talking about, we decided that all 5 solutions we proposed were beneficial. We implemented a sauce ordering rule. We recommended they purchase and install a 4th iPad in their queuing system. We recommended they construct 2 waiting spaces for their drive-through market. And then we recommended that they market their online application and construct parking spaces for online ordering. So this ended up being our recommended solution, and I might talk a little bit more about why we recommended those and what the benefits were. And then I would talk about the economic analysis. We determined that the payback period would pay for itself in less than 15 days. The net present value is about $14,000 with a rate of return of 45%. And that implementation plan is really too small for me to read. But if it was large enough for me to read, I might explain that we'd implement this with some training and construction and whatever the steps are. And then I'd explain the risks and how we might mitigate the risks, and then I would acknowledge the client. So in about 3 to 5 minutes, that's what my poster presentation would look like. Okay, except I just gave you a schematic of a poster presentation. You would actually have more substance. Okay, see if I can get my camera back on. That's close enough. Here is another poster from some students a couple of years ago, where they also follow the same sort of template. As you can see, the header is a little bit different. That's okay. We give you some license for some creativity. We do want you to have the title of the project and your names, the name of this course, and then a really cool Ag Systems Management logo over there that Stormy Pretzmar came up with. See that thing? So that's really neat. Let's back up here. And then there's a lot of text on here, but you can see it's in bullets. Project summary, that's kind of like executive summary. Maybe it's a little bit easier to say than project summary. You got some pictures of the fish they were going to put in this lake in Azerbaijan. They got the economic analysis with some highlighted numbers there. They've got a map, bullets with the recommended solution, an implementation plan. They just had some steps there. They didn't put a Gantt chart. They've got a diagram of how the water is going to flow into the lakes, and then some risks with mitigation. I like that table. Got a risk, and then right next to it, I've got the mitigation. And then they put references. Please don't put references on your poster. They're not required. You could put acknowledgments there. That would be better. Okay, so that's probably a little too much text, but that's an example of a good poster in the past. This is the rubric we're going to use to grade your poster. Is it well organized? How does it appear? Your ability to communicate it, and your quality of writing. Okay, so that's worth 100 points. I've got one more poster I was going to throw out there, so let me escape out of this presentation. Dr. Castell, do you have anything to add to that before I show another example of a poster?
No, Professor McGee, everything is very good.
Thank you. All right. So here is a poster template that you might use, and I'm going to show you. Let me share this one. Okay, Matthew, give me a thumbs up if you can see this poster template. Thank you. All right, so what you can do with this poster is you can, there's a bunch of text boxes. All right, so here you might retype the heading. Over here you might put a, this might, or let's say over here you're going to put your Gantt chart for implementation plan. I never can spell it right on the first time. How'd I do? Oh, good for me. All right, so I might delete that box and I might import my Gantt chart and paste it in there. So you can manipulate however you want to here. And of course up here for poster title, you would type the title of your project and your names and Ag Systems Management 440 Senior Capstone 2, okay? So that's a template that is probably similar to what's posted on our eCampus. Is that right, Young? Or you have a more interesting template posted? Okay, so this is what's posted on eCampus. So what I'm giving you as examples, you can look at those, but you're going to have to build your own, obviously. All right, am I back on the presentation now? Jordan, give me a thumbs up. Can you see the presentation? Thank you. All right. All right, so that's the how we're going to grade the poster. So that's all going to happen next week, Tuesday and Thursday. Everybody good with that? Piece of cake. One slide. I've only got 3 to 5 minutes, so you're thinking this is going to be easy. The challenge is going to be to economize. How am I going to communicate all this information? Now, you gave me 4 oral progress reports, and now you're telling me I got to put it in one slide, and I got 3 to 5 minutes. Yes, Carly. Good question. Does each person still need equal time to talk? That's going to be tough and probably not very effective. So I would probably either limit it to 1 or 2 people. If you want to, 4 people, 1 minute per person, 4 minutes. That would be really cool. But we're not going to require you to do that, okay? Because that's really threading the needle. So we're going to give you the option to do that because that's not what happens in a regular poster session. Usually it's 1, maybe 2 people doing most of the talking. So y'all use your best judgment. We're not going to ding you for that. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Let's talk about the final oral report. Okay, so now I'm changing gears. Your next and final oral presentation is the final report itself. Okay, so this is one where you're going to schedule an hour sometime in the next couple of weeks, I think, where it's common to you, your instructors, and your client. And we'll have to schedule a room for this too. Now, obviously, we'll be doing this hybrid as well. We will need to have a room because I'll be there in person. And but I realize some people, probably your client, will not be. And even you, if you want to do a hybrid presentation, that's fine too. So the oral report, it's your responsibility to invite your client and your faculty advisor if they're able to come. They're probably the least critical in terms of scheduling. So if you're trying to fit all these puzzle pieces together and the faculty advisor is the one who can't make it, that's okay. All right. But we would like your client to be there if they're willing to do that. You want to arrive at least 15 minutes early, and that includes a Zoom presentation too. So get the Zoom room open, do sound checks, make sure everything's good, make sure you can share your slides. This is not the time to rehearse. You've already done that, okay? And so you're going to have 1 hour scheduled for your presentation and questions. So your presentation should be about half of the time. About 30 minutes is what we're looking for here. Let's say plus or minus 5 minutes. So if you come in at 15 minutes, that's really that's not long enough. 20 minutes is a little too short also. 25 to 30 It's rare we have students go over, but that does occur occasionally. So that means you're going to have to rehearse, and you're going to have to make sure your timing is correct. Divide the time equally between the team members. And then for the last half of your hour, you're going to be answering questions. So each team member should answer at least one question, either from the client or from your instructors, okay? This is the time to dress up a little bit, not the time to wear your workout clothes, okay? So business casual is the order of the day, you know, collared shirt, slacks, or blouse, you know, ladies, whatever is appropriate there as well, okay? Coat and tie is really not required. I've seen some team members go out and get the same color shirt. That comes across really well, but that's a lot of effort for not a lot of, impact. So you can think about that, but just try to dress it up a little bit. Handouts of your presentation. You know, this is kind of a bullet from when we did this in person, but it still might be applicable. If there's reference material that you would like your client to have, you could certainly transmit that electronically, whether they're additional spreadsheets or an appendix or something. It's not going to make it into your presentation, but you want to refer to it during your presentation or give your client that that you might talk about during the presentation. It's also, you want to provide a client a copy of the final report. So we haven't really talked about this much, but you know, the client wants the benefit of your work. So maybe you haven't been emailing them your progress reports, but you do want to give them a copy of your final written and oral report. So do that. Probably around the time you do your final presentation is the time to do that. Maybe you haven't wrapped up your final written report yet. That's okay, but you will probably some of the questions your client has during your final oral report you could deal with in your final written report. Okay. If you're coming in person, I've always represent bringing your presentation on a flash drive. I never trust the electrons to make it from your Google Drive to the screen. That has cratered several presentations in the past. So you can rely on that, but it's always good to have a more secure plan B. Okay. Of course, if you're going to be doing your presentation online, then you're just going to be sharing your slide from wherever you are. Just make sure your presentation is there, okay? And we haven't had any problems with that this semester. Here's the rubric, the grading rubric for your final presentation. The first half, first 150, there's a total of 350 points. The first half is a team grade, how well your presentation is presented and the length. You know, that should really say 30 minutes plus or minus 5. Transition between speakers, significant contribution of each team member. That's the team grade. Your individual grade, the second half of the grade sheet, and this is what Dr. Castell and I are going to be using to grade y'all with. You know, how well do you communicate? Professional approach, appearance, posture, eye contact, level of voice. Not just reading the slides, you're presenting instead of just reading. And you've all made good improvement there, so we expect high marks. Okay. The quality of the material. Did you follow the instructions on what you're supposed to present there? For example, risk without a mitigation, you're going to get some points deducted. So quality of the material. Presentation length. You know, did you make a significant contribution to the final presentation? And then we'll grade you on your ability to answer questions. Okay, and that's going to demonstrate your knowledge of the project. If one person is having to answer all the questions, then that's going to be indicative of non-participation by everyone else. Okay, so that's the final oral presentation. Let me see if I can jump out of this for a second, because we're in the process of scheduling that now. Young has taken the lead on that. And let me share this slide real quick. Not a slide, but a screen. So this is the template. It's a Google document that we're using to keep track of people's schedule. You can see what we've done is we've gone through and we found common periods of availability for Dr. Castell and I. And so all the white space is what's available to you to schedule an hour in there. So you've got to coordinate within these available times, your 4 team members and your client. And as you can see, a couple of teams have already scheduled. So still looking for everybody else to do that. That's the next week's presentation. We're doing some of those this week too, aren't we? Or we're available too. So look, we got some time available this week if y'all want to get that knocked out. Okay, so plenty of time to do that. We could even, if we need to, go into the final exam week. There's lots of white space there, but I realize that's going to be challenging for those of you who have final exams. So yeah, we could even go as late as Thursday the 6th. Obviously, the later we go, the more challenging it is for us to get your final grades in for graduating seniors, but we can handle that. So we want to give you maximum flexibility to get your presentation ready and get everybody together. Young, do you have anything to add about that? Okay. So that's all I have to say about your final oral presentation, your final presentation of your project. An hour long, 30 minutes of you doing your presentation, the other 30 minutes of us asking questions and telling you what a good job you did. Now, the final written report. Like I said, there's a lot due here in the last couple of weeks or so of this class. The final written report. Yes, you have to, just like last semester, this is no surprise. You've done this one before, right? Where you take your other reports and you have to edit them together to come up with a final written report. We're not going to turn in a draft. You're simply going to turn in your final report. What's going to be new, if you recall, is a cover page. So a cover page, maybe with some attractive graphics, obviously the title of your report, not just homework 7, okay, but the title of your project, your names, who you're submitting it to, to the client, that kind of stuff. So the audience is your client. This is for your client. We're simply grading it. You're going to have an executive summary. You've done this before. It's just a 1-page summary of the entire report. It should not be more than 1 page. You're not going to cover everything. It's just the highlights. Short statement of the problem, a description of the recommended solution, the total cost, not the economic analysis, just the bottom line. Total cost of your recommended solution, maybe payback period or something like that. Some key numbers that we've talked about. Justification, implementation plan, and some of those things. But obviously the recommended solution is the main topic of the executive summary. You'll also need a table of contents. So look at your table of contents as a very brief outline of your paper. So you're going to have to go back and renumber all your tables and figures, because from homework 5, what was that, economic analysis or something? Anyway, you may have had table 1 in there. Well, now it's probably going to be table 7 in your final report. So you've got to renumber your tables and figures and make sure you renumber them in the text where you refer to them, okay? So you've got to do that. Include just the main headings and maybe some first-level subheadings and page numbers. For example, a main heading might be recommended solution, or not, I'm sorry, potential solutions. And your 3 subheadings would be the names of those potential solutions. If you just put option 1, option 2, and option 3, that's not very interesting. Give those potential solutions a name. And then what page number they're on. Please don't include in your table of contents figure 1, figure 2, table 1, table 2. Okay, that's not traditionally done. It just clutters up your table of contents. Okay. If your table of contents is more than a page long, it's too long. Okay. As you're writing your final written report, obviously the starting point is everything you've written before, but you have to edit. Okay. You're not just going to cut and paste everything together, hit send, and I'm done. Okay, that's going to get a bad grade. Obviously, you're going to include your problem description, but your problem description may have evolved from the beginning of the semester, or even back in October or November when you wrote the problem description. So rewrite it to reflect the current understanding of the problem. The background section. The background section is probably going to take the most editing. You're really not going to have to cover everything that you did in the background. Obviously, if you've got some key literature that you reviewed that is going to find itself applying to the recommended solution, you want to cover that. But this is a part where, when you did the background, you didn't know what the recommended solution was going to be. So if you have some information in your background that may be applied to one recommended solution but not the final solution, it'd be okay to take that out. Okay. Recommended solution itself. So you're obviously going to talk about each of the potential solutions to give your client a record of these are the solutions we considered. But when you talk about the recommended solution, you want to beef this up a little bit because this is really the focus of your paper. So if you're a little bit short on the recommended solution, this is where to really improve. Economic analysis, I think you probably want to cover pretty much everything, if not more than you did before. Risk uncertainty, implementation plan, those two things should be in there. I don't have a conclusion. You may want to, but it'd be good to have a concluding paragraph. And then references. We'll talk about this next time, but many of you have forgotten about how to do references correctly, so you need to go back and review that. And so references and citations. That's another thing you're going to have to fix is your citations if you're citing multiple documents. So your reference, you just can't cut and paste your references all together because you'll have a document being repeated if you refer to it more than once. And then after the references, any appendices you may have or extra material, list of vendors, something that didn't make it into the main report, that's okay. Here's the grading criteria. It's pretty much the same as last time. I'm sorry about the smallness of the font, but that's what the rubric's going to look like, and that should be attached to your homework assignment there. Okay, obviously we're going to grade the way the report appears, the way it looks, the executive summary, the problem statement, the content, background, solution, economic analysis, risk and uncertainty, implementation plan, your ability to communicate, the quality of writing, and using the ASAB style. So 700 points at stake there. And that's going to be a team score. So everybody's got to work together on this team, on this final homework, because whatever your grade is on that, everybody on your team gets that grade. Okay. So that's the final written report. The last document we'll need you to turn in is your team participation survey. Okay, each team member is going to submit one of these, and it's to evaluate your ability to work as part of a team. So you're actually going to, this will be confidential between you and us, the instructors, in terms of you're going to evaluate on a scale of, 100 points. If you got 4 team members, if you all contributed equally, then everybody gets 25%. 25% of effort on the project and on the final report. If somebody was not responsive, you're probably going to not give them 25%. You may give them 20 or 15 or 10%, whatever you feel like that reflects their participation in the project. And of course, you'll have to adjust the numbers of the other team's participants as well. So the purpose of this is to evaluate your ability to work as part of a team. In terms of practical purpose of it, it helps Dr. Castell and I to confirm what we kind of already suspected in terms of who's participating on the team and who's not. Most teams, everybody's being a good team member, but occasionally somebody's not. So this helps us to determine that. And yes, it can affect your grade. If we've kind of suspected that one member was not really pulling their weight, and that's confirmed by the team participation survey, and there's a kind of a real close line between an A or a B there, we're going to take that into account. So you need to be honest about your team participation survey. think about it long and hard about, were there any extenuating circumstances before you run somebody down in their numbers. But be tactful about it. Be honest, be tactful. And that it's rare that we find any surprises on these. They usually confirm what we already knew. And that will be due on eCampus no later than May 4th. Failure to turn that in means you lose 100 points. That's an individual score. Okay, so here's what we've talked about today. The final presentation, the poster presentation. So the final presentation, that's the oral presentation that's in the process of being scheduled. Only 2 teams have scheduled that so far, so y'all want to get with that as quickly as you can. The poster presentation, that's really the next major hurdle to get over. You're going to be turning your draft in on that 1-slide poster by Thursday, and you'll be presenting that next week. The final written report will be due May 4th. If you want to get it out of the way earlier, that's fine. Your team participation survey, that will be on eCampus, and I just covered that. There's 2 other things that will be done. The senior survey and the student evaluations. We're going to knock those out next week. Hopefully that Thursday that we do the second set of presentations. We'll get done with the presentations early, and we'll have some time to have a faculty member, maybe the department head, come in and just talk to you guys. You're graduating seniors, so it's time to give feedback about not only this course, but the entire Ag Systems Management program. So think about what you might tell someone with a view toward constructive criticism. Here's what we liked, here's what we didn't like, here's what we think you could do to make it better, and we take those comments very seriously. So there will be an oral discussion, but there's also a written survey that I have asked Young to come up with. So you'll be able to write those comments down as well, and that will remain anonymous, okay? So we give you 2 opportunities to make a critique of the overall Ag Systems program, okay? And as students who have just been through it the most recently, your perspective is very important to us. And then lastly, the student evaluations. This is online. Hopefully, I don't have a lot of visibility on how these happen. Y'all get emails saying, do your end of course critique on AEFIS, AEFIS. It's an acronym for some website. Okay, we want you to do that. I'm not gonna beat you up about that, but please get that done, because that's very important to us as well. And you want to get that done hopefully by the end of class on Thursday the 29th. Okay? Well, next time we meet, I'm going to talk about the details of, we're going to get into kind of a hot wash of your oral presentations and some of the written reports that we've seen also, with a view toward how to improve the final report and final presentation. At this point, I'll ask Dr. Castell if she has anything to add.
Not really. Everything is very clear to me. So everything is good. Okay.
Any questions? I've covered a lot of information, a lot of moving parts here. Let me put those topics up there. Is everybody clear about what's expected of them in terms of the final presentation, the poster, the final written report, your team participation survey? I'm just going to stand here awkwardly for a few seconds until somebody asks a question. I know I'm good, but I'm not that good. Yes, thank you, Carly. Good question. Do the poster presentations have the same dress code as the final presentations? Ideally, they would. We're going to relax that a little bit this year. When we have the poster session, the capstone event, normally that's kind of a coat and tie, really dress up, put on the dog sort of event. We don't want you to have to wear a coat and tie next week, or you're really nice, Sunday go to meeting clothes. So I would just say, business casual. So dress it up a little bit. Is that okay? All right. Good question. Caleb? Okay, so the question is, if a team is going to do their final presentation using Zoom, do you still need to book a room? Well, I would say no, probably not, because that means if you're going to be not present in the room, then Dr. Castell and I could participate by Zoom as well as your client. Okay, so yeah, that'll relax that requirement. Let's talk a little bit about your final presentation. Doing it in person has certain advantages. Doing it by Zoom may have certain advantages. Y'all weigh those advantages carefully. I would probably recommend one or the other. Trying to do a hybrid in-person Zoom presentation also is going to have its own challenges, but I really am going to leave that up to y'all, okay? And in terms of learning objectives, there's going to be times where you're going to have to give a report in person because we're not going to be behind masks forever. And there are going to be times where you're going to have to give reports like this online. So there's advantages in terms of your learning and you're practicing your skills either way. So I really don't care one way or the other. Dr. Castell, you have any comments about that?
I agree with that. If you can do it in person because you have been doing presentations Zoom the whole semester, that will be a good opportunity for you to try that. But there is no actual pressure on that. So I advise the teams to choose the mode that works better for you.
Okay, great. Obviously when you're giving your presentation by Zoom, you're not going to be able to lay on your bed like Riley's doing. You'll have to be standing up or at least sitting at your desk. Standing up might be a challenge, but at your desk like most of you do when you're doing a presentation. Sorry to dime you out there, Riley, but I just couldn't resist. Yeah, okay.
You're fine.
Any other questions? Those are good ones. I'm going to call on somebody then because I've got a couple for you. Andres, when is your draft of your poster due?
That is due this Thursday.
I can't turn up the volume. What'd you say?
This Thursday.
I hope he said it'll be due Thursday the 22nd, right? So it'll be due, at midnight that night? So you've got about 48 hours plus a little bit. Good question, or good. I assume you got that right. All right, let me pick on James. James, what team are you on? James Shepard.
I'm on team 8.
Good job. Okay, he knows what team he's on. So really what I was asking James is when is your poster presentation most likely to be conducted?
On the 27th? Actually,
it'll be Thursday the 29th.
Oh, sorry, 29.
It'd be good to be ready to go. So I want, teams 1 through 5 are scheduled to go on Tuesday the 27th, and team 6 really needs to be ready to go too, okay?
Gotcha, thanks.
Okay. All right, well, I guess that's about it for today. We'll do this again on Thursday, and I'll cover kind of a hot wash on your oral and written presentations. It's going to be important information. You'll be able to use that to tidy up your final report as well as your final presentation. Okay? So I'll hang around for a few minutes if you have any questions. Otherwise, class is dismissed.